scraps. We've all got them. We're all trying to figure out what the heck to do with these things, how to store them, if we're ever going to use them. In today's video, we are going to design a layout based off of these scraps. Hey crafty friends, this is Chelsea. I have used almost all of my Lake Life collection from Close to My Heart and Stampin' Up, and this is all I have left from the workshop. So I'll show you the layouts that I have made already, and you can see I don't have a lot left over. Sometimes the workshops are like that, you use almost everything, but I think we can squeak out one more double-paged layout. So let's look at the finished pages, and then we're going to play around and just figure out how this can all come together to make a page. I probably will add some cardstock, definitely 12 by 12, but I might have to add a little bit extra cardstock. We'll see. I'm gonna do my best to use the majority of these scraps. So here are the completed layouts from the workshop, and I did switch them up a bit. I tend to do that. Sometimes I make them exactly how the workshop shows, and sometimes I go my own way and do my own thing. So this was a 2-page layout, and I kind of rearranged. This one was supposed to all be on one side with the paper strips on this side. And I liked the idea of splitting that in half and kind of having strips on either side. And then I added these sticker strips over here to kind of help taper off the design. So these ones were already included in the workshop guide cutting directions, and then just added these stickers. I kept a lot of the things the same, I just moved things around. So this page is pretty much done, except it needs some journaling, which I will do before I file it away. Now this one does have a pattern paper in the background, which I don't tend to do as much if I'm just on my own doing it, but that is what the workshop called for, and I think it worked out really well, and I'm glad that I split this really bold element in half and kind of made the design a little bit more balanced on each side. Now I'm going to show you the other layout. This one I actually just finished up. I make these layouts usually in my Zoom that I do with my customers every month. I do 2 Zooms a month with them. We get together and craft. Usually I'm working on these projects. So this one I hadn't quite finished because the title did not go with what I was scrapbooking, so I had to reconfigure my title for this one. I used this new tag die from the online exclusives that just launched recently. And it has this really nice piercing detail around it, and then also the alphabet dies from Stampin' Up. Of course, I had to add some of my favorite linen thread in a little double bow just to accent that tag. And then this is pretty much like the workshop, except I added an extra photo. There was only supposed to be 2 3x4s over here, and I added a third because I figured it was too empty without it, and I want to squeeze in as many photos as I can. And then I just added another bow with that linen thread to kind of tie it in, and so that the tags kind of look like they match. If you haven't seen the last video I put up where I used this tag set, this is the Greetings of the Season dies, and there is like a Christmas greeting set that goes with this, as well as another set that is like everyday sentiments that also coordinates with this die set, but I figured I would use it more just as tags, so that's why I don't have it combined with the stamp set. And then the mini alphabet dies. I really like this set. It has lots of punctuation. It also has different characters that are not found in the English language, so in case you are trying to spell a title out in German or something like that, you can do that. And there are multiples of certain letters, which is awesome. And it was super fast to just put that title together, and the perfect size as well if you don't want like a really big title. Since this is the Lake Life kit, there was some really good title options, but these photos weren't from a lake, they were from a pond, and I just felt kind of weird using a lake title for it. So you can see I stuck to Family Fun, Make a Splash. I didn't use anything that said lake on this page. And the last set of pages that is from this workshop is this one. Oh, I see I forgot to actually stick these down. I need to go back and actually attach those so that they stick. This is pretty much how it was supposed to be. I did again add extra photos. Now I'm trying to remember what it was exactly. I think there was the 3x4s and I added in the 3x3s. There was a lot of empty space and I figured I could squeeze more photos in there, so I did it. And then there was supposed to be some ink blending on these layouts, but I skipped over that part. But a really fun day at the lake. So that is everything that I've used the workshop for, and now we're going to use the rest for this layout. So the first thing I'm going to do working with my scraps is just kind of sort them out by size. So I have a lot of zip strips here, which are the little branding strips that have the collection and the names of the colors on it, but they also have a nice design on the back. This was just an extra strip left over from cutting. Here's my kind of bigger pieces that I have. These are all, I think, almost 12. This one's shorter than 12 inches, which is unfortunate. And then I do have some smaller pieces that are like 3 or 4 inches. They would work really good for small little layers to tuck under, or for like little banners or something like that. So I'm just sorting by size. Kind of have these like in between sizes, and then these longer ones here. So I can kind of get an idea of what I have. So I have a few bigger, some little strips. Like I said, I might have to add some cardstock, but I'm going to try my best to do what we can with this. So a good strategy, I think, when you're working with your scraps is to see what you have for photos first. I went ahead and printed off some photos. These are from Pond as well, so I won't be able to use any of the lake themed stickers. But I thought these were really cute pictures. And something that you can do is include more pictures if you don't have a lot of paper. Or you can also just make your photos bigger. So if you would usually use smaller photos to squeeze more in, you could go with more 4x6s or even 5x7. I have 2 4x6s, 3 4x4s, and 2 3x4s. These ones I've all printed with a white border. The 3x4s, I can't do that, so I have trimmed them down and put them onto white cardstock so that they all look the same. So my thinking for this is I want this one on this side because then she's looking into the page. And I'm not sure if I want these like kind of split like that or what exactly, but generally this is my thinking. And have sort of a band of photos coming across the middle of my page. And then I thought it'd be really nice to end cap this page with a bunch of photos. Since I'm not going to have like big chunks of paper and stuff, I can have a big column of photos. And then I thought if I'm using a white background for this, it should work really good. That even if I have a little bit of gaps between here, I haven't trimmed my photos perfectly with the white border, but it won't matter because I just have white cardstock underneath. Now, since I have strips, I could do strips kind of coming across and have sort of like layered strips, maybe larger at the top and then coming down. I could also do just having strips evenly placed and kind of like slats like this. I could cut. I wonder what's the other side. The other side is that pattern. I could either cut this in half and have a thicker strip, put half on here or half on there. I don't need the full length here because I want this to end probably right here. I want to have a gap of white between whatever's going on here and my column of photos. I don't want the paper to run right up to here, I don't think, because I do have these gaps between. I think I want it to just kind of end right around here. So this is kind of like a separate section, a separate grouping, and then this group of photos is separate over here. Now it is a little bit tricky. My zip strips, I do have doubles, so that means I can have a piece for each page, but any of the ones like this, I would need to cut this in half or just have it go part ways. Maybe like this, cut it like right here and have part of it on this page, part of it on this page, but it can't run the full length, which I think is fine. I'm kind of envisioning a cluster of strips that has different lengths to it, different thicknesses, and that will work really well with my strips. Now, I do have a couple colors of cardstock left over here, and I can either leave them this way or I could stamp on them and create more pattern paper. So that's an option too. Now, the other thing I'm thinking, kind of my gut instinct is what I would like to do is have like a big chunk of paper that's running kind of behind the whole grouping like that, but that means I would have to bring in more cardstock, and I was trying not to do that. But another option is I could do some ink blending. I could also do some stamping in the background to give some weight or a background to this. Another thing that would look really cool is kind of a cloud background. I've done that a few times where I mask clouds and ink blend, and it gives you this really pretty like outdoor look to your page. So that is an option as well. Or I can just ink blend behind my photos and kind of diffuse it out. Now the colors that are in this collection are Acorn, Glacier, Pine, Sage, Seabrook, and White Daisy. Glacier is often my choice when I'm doing skies or doing ink blending, but I could also use Seabrook, which has a little bit more green in it. So I'll have to think about that. Okay, I think I have a general idea. Now I need to just actually start cutting up my paper and see what this is going to look like. I think what I'm going to do is just measure this and cut it in half. So it's 4 inches. So I can have two 2-inch strips, and then this one I'll have to cut it down a little bit. All right, I'm going to grab my paper trimmer and then we can start chopping this up. It's a little bit nerve-wracking when you don't have any extras. So however I cut it, I'm going to have to work with those pieces. But that's just an opportunity for us to be creative, right? I'm pulling out my Stampin' Up! Trimmer. This is pretty new. I'm still getting used to using it, but so far I'm really liking it. So I'm going to keep playing with it, and I will kind of report back once I'm used to using it. I am really haphazardly just chopping up paper. So that text paper, I did cut it in half at 2 inches, and the little thicker ones here, I am measuring them because I need them to be the same, so I'm trying to find halfway. And as far as length, that I'm just kind of eyeballing. I want my pieces to kind of be staggered. I don't want them to be the same length. So I just have to kind of put them on the page, see how they look, and then see how much I need to chop off to get them where I want them to be. So I don't have exact measurements, but I wanted to show you my process so that if you're working with your scraps, which are going to be probably different from my scraps, it kind of gives you an idea of how to figure this out. I want my pieces to be offset from each other, and this part here kind of threw me off because usually I like my pieces to go kind of longer at the top and then get shorter in length. And that's not necessarily going to work, but I am going to use the zip strips to kind of break things up and maybe hide certain parts that aren't looking perfect to my eye, that I want them to kind of mask where one piece is a little bit too short. What I'm struggling with is the 1-inch strips. When I cut them, I have kind of the pieces are not matching up. You can see I have a longer piece here on the right than I would like, and so I keep kind of swapping out those two 1-inch strips. But once I add the zip strips here, it will kind of make everything pull together, and I'm really happy with how they do layer up. Now I have some more square and rectangular pieces, and I'm just going to add some layers under my photos just to break up these strong linear lines, make it a little bit more playful. I have these little strips that I can trim down and have just little bits of them poking out. I was trying to figure out how I wanted this to sit so that it looks good, and I do end up putting this long one down the side, which I think looks much better than trying to put it at the top. And then I can just trim them down in length so that they just poke out a little bit, and it adds some playfulness to this layout. I thought maybe I wanted to add some paper behind this photo too, but I think it just makes it a little bit too busy. Then there's just too much going on with the different papers, different layers under the photos, and then I only have one photo that doesn't have layers, so then I felt like I had to add something under that one. So I'm going to end up dropping those ones that are under the landscape photo. Right now I am measuring to see how long that green piece needs to be so that it sticks out just enough for me on the end. And I went ahead and chopped down all my pieces so that they were just a little bit shorter than that green one. That's why I started with the green one, and then I could measure the other ones just a little bit shorter than that. For embellishments, I'm going to use this Lake Life card making workshop set, Stampin dies, and this one actually is still available when I'm filming this. And it has some really nice like cattails and reeds in it, which I'm going to use. I'm looking at the sticker sheet. You can see I've chopped it up pretty good just to see what I have left as far as like title options and embellishment options. I decided to go with this title. It says, "Come on in, the water's fine." And I know maybe it doesn't perfectly go with my page, but I thought it was kind of funny if you look at it from like the geese's perspective. Like, come on into the pond, the water's fine. So I decided to go with it. I want to use up as much of this collection as I can. So I also decided to add some more photos. I felt like that big chunk of patterns at the bottom was kind of overwhelming. So I printed off 2 more 3x3 photos, matted those in white. And now I'm just going around and adding some embellishments. I'm going to keep embellishments on this page pretty minimal. The star of the show is really those paper strips and my photos. I decided I'm going to add some little banner pieces up here in this top corner with the pattern paper, just because I felt it needed a little something, a little weight, a little reason to kind of draw your eye up there. Now I wanted to work in this yellow color, so I thought I'd make sure I have 3 different spots with that yellow to keep kind of that color theme throughout, just so it doesn't look odd having it in one place or maybe 2 places. I'm also working out where else I want to have embellishments. I want to have 3 points of embellishment with these cattails. I decided to cut the bases out of Acorn Cardstock, and then the little kind of what would be the fuzzy part, I cut that out of Espresso Cardstock. I'm using the dark side of it. And just to add a little bit of definition, you could definitely skip this, use them as is without adding on that little piece, but I like that we have the option. This set was designed for card making, and if you want to see the cards, they are on my Instagram. And like so many Stampin' die sets, they are going to work perfectly for scrapbooking. Since my pages are quite busy, I decided I wanted my embellishments to be something quite small and simple. Now I decided I also wanted to add some ducks, even though in the photos they are geese. I brought out the sage ink and pine ink from Close to My Heart. I'm stamping first in sage because it's a lighter color, and then it's hard to tell from this angle, but I am just rolling the bottom and back part of the duck stamp into the darker color. This is called rock and roll. It gives you a nice kind of 2-tone look. And then that third duck I just did straight into the darker color. If you want to do this technique, just make sure you always start with the lighter color first and then go into the darker. I used the coordinating die to die cut those ducks. Somehow I managed to lose that die. I have no idea where it went, but I cannot find it for the life of me, which is really annoying. I also cut out some like little reeds out of the sage cardstock and pine cardstock scraps that I still had left to work with. I also used acorn scraps from the kit to make the cattails. The only thing I had to grab an extra scrap from my stash was for the espresso color. You can see I am just laying out all these pieces kind of where I think I want them to go. I layered the ducks over the bottom to cover that bottom part of the reeds. On the other side, I used that little hexagon to cover the bottoms. And then you can see down at the bottom by the 3x3 photo, I actually tucked the bottoms underneath one of the zip strips. Now I thought I was going to use this third duck up here by the title. This is where I decided my title is going to go. But that duck is actually going to end up down by that 3x3 photo and that little cluster of cattails and reeds that's down there. I'm pretty happy with how this is all looking, and I went ahead and glued everything down off camera. So I kind of bent up the edges of these pattern papers that are layered under the photo, and then I used foam tape to pop up all of my title except for the little banner piece. I also used foam tape on this little hexagon The other cattails and reeds I just put down with a little bit of glue at the base. You can see here where I added that duck with that little strip that says memories. I really like how that came together and it filled that out really well. Now I have two ducks. The one that's in front is popped up. The other one is flat, covering the bottom of those reeds. I didn't use a lot of dimension on this layout. I did pop up that word relax at the top, and I did the same thing where I bent up the corners of those pattern papers that are layered under the photo. That big kind of blaring white spot is actually where my journaling is going to go. So if you're thinking it looks a little empty right there, that's all right. That's where the journaling goes. Now, if you're ready for more ideas on how to start a layout, whether it's with your photos or your supplies, check out this playlist. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.